Alright, hi, I'm Ramon. This is my part on the operating systems. My partners were Benjamin and Rahi, and I'm going to read my slides.
So our scenario is you're a hardcore gamer and you need a device with the best operating system. You particularly like graphic intensive games, and you only have two options: Linux, which in this case would be Ubuntu Desktop 20, or Chrome OS. What do you choose? Which one is more effective and better for gaming, but can still sustain schoolwork? And most importantly, can we afford it since we're in high school? So, you have made this presentation to list all the pros and cons about each operating system to ultimately decide which computer is better for you.
Okay, so now we're going to talk about some pros and cons of Linux operating systems in general. Um, Although we are going to focus more specifically on Ubuntu later. So the first advantage would probably be that there are more target system types that Linux systems can be applied to, including embedded systems, mobile devices, personal and mainframe computers, as well as servers. Um, Another advantage to using Linux systems is that it's very customizable. Um, and its main feature that allows this is its open source code. Um, this is a key difference between Linux operating systems like Ubuntu and Chrome OS. And we'll talk more about this later. So another benefit to using Linux systems like Ubuntu is its cost effectiveness, because there's no need to have a license, and it's free to use for anyone and everyone. Um, its security is another advantage to using Linux. And although Chrome OS does have slightly better security than Linux operating systems typically do, it's still up there as one of the most secure operating systems out there. So the final pro is that it has low system requirements, and this essentially just refers to the hardware requirements um, that a person such as a high schooler might have or need to run an operating system. Um, so, assuming that this high schooler has the typical um, hardware that a high schooler would have, such as I'm assuming a personal computer, probably a phone, it should be fine to run Linux. So, some disadvantages to using Linux operating systems like Ubuntu is adaptation. Um, and this basically just means that for people who have not used Linux systems before, it may be difficult to adapt to it. One example of this is terminals. Um, and terminals are basically a command line interface where you have to enter a specific command to complete a task. And people have trouble with this often when they're new. So another con is software compatibility, and similarly game accessibility. So most popular apps and games on Mac and Windows are not directly accessible um, from Linux. You would typically need a third party or some other website to access them. And the final disadvantage to having an operating system is that there's no technical support. Because this is open source code, it's not like Apple where you have Apple support. If you have a problem using Linux, you'll typically have to either just solve the problem yourself using the internet, or potentially find some community forum out there.
Alright, so Chrome OS. Pros: the Chromebook has a long-lasting battery life just in case you forget to plug in while grinding Fortnite. Speaking from personal experience, Chrome OS on the Chromebook is mostly virus safe, so pretty standard. Chrome OS updates automatically to keep you up to date with new and improved features on the Chromebook, so overnight it will update itself and stuff like that, rather than having to wake up in the morning, try to play the game, and it says 3-hour long update. No one wants that. Cons: Chrome OS does not allow you to play certain games without dual booting, which means you need another software or something to help you play those games, because Chrome OS, I'd say, is not meant for gaming at all. Chromebooks are not meant for running heavy applications, so it can crash really easily. I've done this before, actually. So basically, Chromebooks, like I said before, are not meant for gaming, and trying to play these really big, high and advanced games that require a lot of like storage and stuff, gonna make it crash super easily. Chrome OS is used in a low memory environment, so Chromebooks cannot store anything which result cannot store many things which result in slower running. Yeah, pretty self-explanatory there. Hardware options. Asus Chromebook Flip 2-in-1 Chromebook. It's touchscreen and 16-hour battery life, which is a lot. You can play pretty much all the time, and if it's on charge, you're set for life. We're hardcore gamers, so we need that. ARM Cortex A73 octa-core, 8-core processor speed, 2 gigahertz. So that's fast. Could be faster, but it is pretty fast. Had to search up what that whole thing was because I had no idea if that was even English. Overclock. So overclock is basically where you have a computer or some sort of tech and you can change and alter the hardware in the computer. So like maybe having a faster processing speed, and like better graphics. A lot of gamers do this. We're a hardcore gamers, so we're gonna love this. But unfortunately, it is not encouraged to do that on Chromebooks. Chromebook is meant for school work, kind of, so it'd be great for that, but it's not meant for gaming. So overclocking is not really great on this. 4 gigabyte system memory, pretty standard. I'm not gonna lie. It has a full range of motion, so which is great because you can play it like an iPad if you want to play those kind of games. 12 inches across, so this MacBook, for example, is 13 inches, so 12 inches like cut off a little bit. So I mean, it's not great because it's a smaller screen, so it's gonna be hard to fully like get a wider grasp at the game you're trying to play. 32 gigabyte, which means it only runs really small files, which is really not great for gaming at all. We're gonna leave it at that because you can just tell 32 gigabytes of storage is not great. It's not gonna help, and it's really bad for trying to play games. So the ORYX Pro, then that's how you say it. Memory is up to 64 gigabytes, which is literally double what the Chromebook had. So that's really good. Has up to 4 terabytes of storage. That is a lot. 1 terabyte is considered really good. 4 terabytes is like top notch, excellent, bro. Like you need that for gaming, and we're gonna need all that storage. So that already takes that category without question. Graphics, NVIDIA GeForce RTX 3070 Ti or 3080 Ti. Still have no idea what that was, so I researched it and found out it was a really good graphics card that was in this computer, or you can even change it if you want, but it's in this computer and it's really great. Super cool graphics, and it's like literally watching on a big TV screen. Has up to 80 watt battery, which is a little bit shorter than the Chromebook. It's like 12 hours, searched it up. 12-hour battery life, which, I mean, it's 4 hours we're talking about here from the Chromebook, so I guess 4 hours can make a difference if we're a hardcore gamer like ourselves. Encouraged to overclock.
Okay, so now we're going to talk about some advantages and disadvantages of gaming softwares between Ubuntu and Chrome OS. So when it comes to gaming software, Ubuntu definitely has way more advantages than Chrome OS. To start, they already share a lot of similar gaming platforms, such as GeForce Now. But one example of how Ubuntu typically runs better, how gaming softwares typically run better on Ubuntu is how GeForce Now typically has many issues with high latency on Chrome OS, but it runs much smoother on Ubuntu. Another example of gaming software used by Ubuntu is GOG, just another digital distribution platform service for video games and also films, actually. It has relatively cheap games for purchasing and downloading, so that's one good thing about it. And Ubuntu also has more gaming-focused drivers, which play a part in smoothing out the gameplay and how it runs. NVIDIA GeForce Experience is something that optimizes the GPU and the driver, which is something a high schooler would want if they're really into graphic intensive games. Radeon software is essentially the same thing, but it's an AMD version of the GeForce Experience. Um, okay, so Steam is probably one of the most popular gaming softwares out there. Many people in our class probably already are aware of it and use it to play their own favorite games. Uh, contains games and streaming. Um, and what helps Linux softwares like Ubuntu, Linux systems like Ubuntu access these games is Proton, which is essentially just another version of Wine, a compatibility layer for Windows applications. Um, and if we were in class right now, Matt would have brought his Steam Deck for us to present, which is just a device that runs games for Linux.
So, customizability. Ubuntu Desktop 20 is a branch of Linux, and Linux is open source, meaning that anyone can customize the code to how they like by editing the Linux kernel. So you can also create your own version of Linux, like gamers might want to try, especially if you like coding. And then desktop backgrounds and applications can be changed too. For example, someone made Ubuntu look like Mac OS. Um, it was originally developed as an open source software based on Unix, but Linus made it free so it was accessible for everyone. This makes it easier to edit, especially if you only want to try it out. Chrome OS. Chrome OS is a version of Linux, which also makes it open source. It's harder to find online guidance as to changing code because not many people like to change Chromebook operating system. And it was originally designed for web applications, so there's not much you can change. And you can't download Chrome OS. You can only download Chrome OS Flex. Next is security, stability, and quality. So, Linux offers a very secure operating system as compared to the other operating system, like Windows. It runs servers for companies because their software is not prone to malware attacks, also meaning your PC won't get hacked. Gamers might want to download third-party applications that enhance performance, and Ubuntu does not block it. For example, Overwolf can record games, not necessarily enhance, but maybe something a gamer wants. Chrome OS. Since Chrome OS is based off of Linux, it also has a secure operating system. Chrome OS goes the extra mile by encrypting files for you. However, Chrome OS does not allow you to download third-party applications, which helps against viruses, but obviously not if you want like other apps. Chrome OS is a branch off of Linux, but most applications cannot run on Chrome OS alone. This makes Linux better for gaming, but for going to school, Chromebooks are better. They have around a 13-hour battery life and is very secure since you are not able to download third-party applications, which would be great for confidential school files. However, as a hardcore gamer, you would probably like to modify software or download performance-enhancing applications, which is not possible on Chromebook. Using Linux allows you to change the operating system to how you like, and it is downloadable on almost any device at zero cost. Though Chromebooks are cheaper, it would be a better investment for playing games to buy a higher quality PC than changing the operating system, Linux, or buying the Oryx Pro that has Linux pre-downloaded. Chromebooks can only run App Store games, which limits the amount of fun you can have. Though Chromebooks can be better for the majority of students, being a gamer prioritizes customizability, overclocking, and performance, which then makes Linux the better choice.